Hello, everyone. Welcome to another interesting day on planet Earth. And here we are at the end of October, and tomorrow is the 1st of November. And the end of October heralds a few things. There seems to be three topics on people's minds or conversations at the moment. First is the Three-Eye Atlas, which has been watched quite intriguingly by NASA and other people around the world. And it certainly is showing up to what I would hope to be finally the disclosure of we are not alone in the multiverse, in where they disclose that, yes, there are other light forms. Now, the media is saying it's a comet, but comets don't stop for a period of time, restart again. They certainly don't have light emanating from the front, and it's emanating a beautiful green light for those who've been following it. And it's also sending a signal. So lots people are really intrigued, and it's supposed to be around this time close to our sun and Mars. So if you haven't seen anything like that, I'm sure you will, or just have a look on the internet. The other today is Halloween, something I don't celebrate. It doesn't have a very good past. Most people don't understand what Halloween is all about. But for some reason, Australia has adopted this when it hasn't even been ours to start with. And the third thing for us in Melbourne specifically, everything stops for a horse race on Tuesday called the Melbourne Cup. So for us, it's the start of a long weekend, and people take that extra holiday on Monday to go away. But we're having a nice time at home. I just wanted to jump in today because I wanted to share some interesting things that we went through in the New Earth Academy recently. So let me just share my screen with you. And let me show you this, because we were going through Grigori Grabovoi's books, The Manifestation of Eternity. And it's really interesting if you've never looked at his images. And we really pulled it apart because our physical eyes look at things and say, yes, this is reality, this is all there is. But in Grigori Grabovoi's teachings, we're training our consciousness to see beyond what we just perceive with our eyes. So just to give you a hint, when we first looked at this, the question I asked everybody is, what is this? What do you make of it? And they, came back with, oh, it looks obviously like a kitchen. And then they started to describe different parts to it. And I said, but have a look. One side seems to be defined more than others, very clear lines. Yet on the other side, it's not as defined. There is a definition of everything in our physical world, a structure. And then there's the invisible world. And we started to move through some of his photos and started to notice little nuances, like the trees in the background, which represent nature, haven't got a full structure. There's a bit of an outline, but no clear definition. Yet the things that are organically material that we've made, humans made, is definitely an outline. We started to look at pictures and then look beyond what we could see. And we spent a bit of time on this, having a look and noticing what our consciousness was showing us in the picture. And during the two classes, I noticed different things that were in here. And then we looked at the opposite of what this picture is. There's light and dark in anything. And then we started going through some of his color images in his book. And we looked beyond, because Grabovoi said in his images, he is pointing out that eternity he's created and been able to craft through his different art, eternity for people to be able to see. So we started looking at some of his images. And it wasn't until we got to this, and we started to talk about what's the feeling when you got to this image, when you were just looking as if you're daydreaming. And I can say I probably stood on a ledge like this, on a balcony like this, and looked at the ocean. And I can look into the ocean for multiple hours, just watching all the nuances as the waves crash to the rocks below or the shore, or the dancing of the light on the top of the waves. But anyway, we had a look into this, and one of the participants said, "Oh my gosh, I feel so peaceful and serene." And I said, "Yeah, so does eternity actually have the feeling of peace and serenity?" Anyway, something to ponder. We then went into this photo and again had a looked beyond what the image was showing. Because remember, we just take what we think we see in our eyes and take that as reality. And when you start to look into this, you'll start to see number sequences. You start to notice in the areas of where there may be darkness, normally there's there's a little bit of light. And then notice how your mind will jump in there and go, oh, the sun must be shining here. How we always try to justify what we're seeing and then disregard what we may see in our imagination. Then we went into some images where well, it wasn't quite clear, and we started to see beyond what we saw. So it was quite an interesting sight to have a look at. This is to me how I see the ether when I see it. It's I never really thought much about it before. I've been seeing it for well over 25 years. Not thought what to do with it once I saw it. But it's the fifth element and something we discussed in the New Earth Academy a little while ago. So what unfolded for all of us during this time when we're looking at Grabovoi's images was an expanding of our consciousness and growing a depth to it that we don't always take when we read words or when we're in the practice. And so Grabovoi really appeals to the people that have a very creative side. And so therefore, when we delved into the images, we could start to strengthen that muscle and start to see how images then have an important role to play to bring about not just what we see through our optical system, but what we see in our internal vision, and start to then give credence to and really develop a strong muscle of, what I see in my imagination is true. One of the things they talk about with the three-eye atlas is, and I've heard many astrologers talk about the significance of it arriving at this time, is to help to really shift the collective consciousness forward, that there are many things that are happening at this time. The Earth's response. I noticed that there was also a post about the gathering of pods of whales and pods of dolphins into the coast of Australia and America and around, and it significantly shows that there is things happening with the Earth. When we have things happening in the sky, it doesn't not affect the Earth as well. There's certainly an effect with what's happening on Earth, and we only have to look at what's been happening in Jamaica and around that area with massive tornadoes. So Mother Earth is responding to what's happening in the sky as well. And Pythagoras talked about the movement of the spheres and talking about the spheres in the universe, the movement of the planets and things like that. So it's been an interesting time exploring pictures. And if you do get a chance to look at Grabovoi's book, it's called The Manifestation of Eternity. There's 2 books, and it's another way to develop your consciousness if you've never thought about exploring it through pictures. So if you are starting your weekend, then please enjoy it. Enjoy everyone around you. Please spend some time in nature. And when I look at this picture, it reminds me the joy and brightness and the life in nature. And certainly it will energize you and help you to bring you back into center so that you can feel energized. Anyway, have a great weekend, everyone, and I look forward to catching up with you again.